Okay, this is our last video in a series, right, for Paste from Excel that we're going to be doing, and this is going to be looking at our service and non-inventory part items. So how do we get there? There's 9 different ways to get to the same place in QuickBooks. I'm going to say the easiest way, right, is go to your inventory center or your items list, and down here we have Paste from Excel, right, or Paste from Excel up top. When you choose that from anywhere, you see here it defaults to inventory parts since I'm in my inventory center, but then I can come in and change it. So I want to be able to edit my service items, or I want to be able to edit my non-inventory parts. All right, and these two are very similar. There's just very few fields that are different in the difference between these two. One big one is manufacturer's part number, right? That field is available on non-inventory parts, not available on service items. How do I know that? Again, sometimes looking at these columns and saying comparing it this way is a little difficult. If I go into my items list and I say new item and I want to add a service item, I can see what fields are available. If I want to add a non-inventory part, I can see what fields are available, right? So that's a good way to kind of say, well, what's possible to add rather than looking at these columns across the top here. So we're going to start with service items. Remember, if you add service items as an item type, you cannot change them from being a service item. So I'm going to go ahead and customize my columns here, and I'm going to add all the columns that are possible so we can run through them. Okay, so we have our item name. Again, if it's a sub item of another item, right? So you can set up subs through this. This is one of the areas in QuickBooks where you have 2 separate fields, one for the sub and one for the header. You can edit the sales price in here, barcode number, income account, if it's taxable or non-taxable, the full item name. So what this name is that if we did have it as a sub, it would show up in here with the header : sub, description, cost, the preferred vendor, the expense account. Notice that on service items, right, you don't have to use an expense account, but you can choose to use them. So if we needed to edit our service items, so let's say this item, we were going to make it as a double-sided item now, I can come in here and put my expense accounts. So we'll say, cost of goods sold, and then I'm actually going to right click and copy this down because now I want to use expense accounts for that. Okay, sales description. All right, hopefully you guys don't get that pop-up in my sample files. I just use them for so many things, but sometimes I get this kickback error message. So sales description, inactive. Again, with inactive, what's really nice is that it's, you check it off and then you can push down and check, yes, down, check, yes. Do pay attention to those warnings though. You really do want to pay attention to why they're giving you a warning. Don't just check over them. The shelf, warehouse, lead time, etc. That's all custom fields that I have set up. So again, if I decided that I'm going to use a new custom field at one point, I can come in here and add all the data that I'm going to fill in that custom field. We have the each price, again, some more custom fields. The markup and margin you can affect in here, and then the unit of measure. Okay, I can come in and add additional service items. So let's say we're gonna call it special labor. Okay, it will tell me the required fields. So my sales price is going to be $500. My income account is going to be $45,000. Sales is going to be non-taxable. The purchase description, I'm going to put in a cost of $100. The preferred vendor field, I'm going to put in accounting firm. The expense account field, I'm going to put it to whatever, indirect labor, and some sales description so I can fill that in. So I can go ahead and save this. All right, so one thing that we want to notice with this special labor, I can come in here now and look at it. Because I put in a expense account and a preferred vendor, it automatically marks it as being a double-sided item. All right, so some of the other ones that we had looked at before, right, when we add additional information in here, it'll make it a double-sided item. So it's good to know that you don't have to check something off additional, right? It'll force it to be a double-sided item. One of the things that we didn't cover with this is what can you do in multi-user mode, right? So I'm going to go ahead and switch on over to multi-user mode. And now that I'm in multi-user mode, let's go in and do the same thing. So paste from Excel, right? Because one of the other ways that we've shown to get data into QuickBooks is an IAF file. And in an IAF file, you have to be in single user mode. So I can come in here and say, consulting, and add an item, $50, again, $45,000, that it's going to be a cost of $50, or we don't want to, $15, who the preferred vendor is, which expense account we're going to use. Okay, so I can get all those details in and save the change, and it will add that additional record in here. If I wanted to paste multiples, I could come in and, once I have them in Excel, I can right click and paste each of those columns in and save them in mass. And I can do that in multi-user mode. All right. Also, when we're looking at, so let's make an edit. Let me save changes. Let's make an edit to, what's one of these that doesn't have? So here, doesn't have an expense account associated with it, right? And it won't let me add the expense account in here, right? And so I have to look at why. So if I go to 45,000 sales on my items list here, it won't let me add an expense account because we don't have it marked as a double-sided item, okay? And of course you have to switch to multi-user mode to do that. If I wanted to edit some of the accounts here, it won't let me do that, right, in multi-user mode. But the expense account here, so it'll let me update that. When I say save, okay, it will allow me to update the expense on this one in multi-user mode. So there are some things that it'll let you do in multi-user mode that it won't let you do in single user mode. If I were to go into special labor and edit it and try and choose, right, to move it, it would ask me that question if I want to update existing, right? So if I come in here, change again, it says, do you want to update existing transactions, yes or no? It doesn't ask that question when you're doing it on the paste from Excel spreadsheet, okay? And then also in here, if I were to try to change the revenue, notice that it won't let me change the revenue because I have to switch out of multi-user mode, right? So it kind of follows, the paste from Excel follows the same rules that QuickBooks also follows, okay? But in order to get some data in there, it'll allow you to do it in multi-user mode when you use that paste. Okay, so let's go ahead, let me switch back to single user. And let's go ahead here and we're going to paste from Excel and let's take a look at the non-inventory parts. Very similar fields. Again, there's a couple fields additional. So item name, I'm not going to add them here. Item name, sub-item of, we talked about that. Sales price, barcode, income tax, income account, sales tax, manufacturer's part number. So if we weren't using those and we decided we were now going to use them, we can go in and paste those in. Item full name, description, cost, preferred vendor, etc. So nothing really different additional on this side. The only big difference there is that manufacturer's part number. Okay. So again, check out some of our other videos. They all apply to each other. So some tips you use on the customer list could be helpful on the non-inventory parts list. We just didn't want to repeat the same content over and over again. But of course, the biggest thing when you're dealing with getting any data into QuickBooks or any cleanup is just having awareness of what fields are available and why you want to put data in those fields. Okay. All right, now you can go paste from Excel.